Hello everybody, welcome to Wine World TV, the best wine show anywhere. I'm your host, Mark Fusco. Before we get started, make sure you're smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel. Every like and subscription helps build the channel. Even better, spread the word to your friends about the best wine show anywhere. All right, it's time once again for my Christmas Day special. In kind of a similar fashion of my Halloween and Thanksgiving specials, all of the wines are coming from one region, Sancerre. They almost were all from one winery. Anyway, the Sancerre region of France is best known for white wine made from Sauvignon Blanc. But did you know they also make a red and even rosé wines? And both of these are made from Pinot Noir. And I'm on record of saying that Sancerre Pinot Noir is one of my preferred regions for Pinot Noir. Yes, even over Burgundy on a dollar for dollar basis. These wines are coming from two wineries. One I would consider iconic and a standard bearer for white Sancerre. The other is brand new to me, so I'll be learning along with you about them. Let's talk about the first winery, Domaine Hippolyte Reverdy. It's been around for a long time. It's located in the small village of Verdigny in the Sancerre AOP. Founded in 1600, it was essentially a small farm with multiple crops and goats that also made wine for personal consumption. Nothing unusual in many parts of Europe. Many families, even today, will have a small vineyard from which they will make personal wine. After World War II, Hippolyte, the patriarch of the family, decided to increase the production of Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir to sell to the local cooperative to meet the demand in Paris. He and his three sons eventually began bottling small quantities under their own label. One of those sons, Michel, or Michael, I have Michael one part of the script and Michel in the other part. Anyway, so Michel joined the business in 1971. He would eventually take over after the passing of his father and tragically his two brothers. His niece, Julie Gouillard, is the winemaker and joined the winery in 2018. And Michel is still working the vineyards and in the winery 50 plus years after joining the business. They have 14 hectares in total of vines, 11 of which are Sauvignon Blanc and 3 of which are Pinot Noir. According to the Kermit Lynch website, Michel effectively works every single day. No vacations, no travel. That's dedication, man. The website also states this, quote, in earlier days, Kermit considered the Sancerre Blanc very good, with great typicity. Although since Michel has taken the reins, Kermit says that Reverdy has since, quote, become the benchmark domain of our day, end quote, right? I'd agree with this, even though I haven't had this vintage of the wine. I've had prior vintages, and it's absolutely a benchmark wine. I say this because last year, 2023, when I was preparing for the advanced sommelier exam, I used it to reset my palate for Sancerre. You see, for a few years, I and my fellow somms in our tasting group, and even some other somms I talked to, would have difficulty identifying Sancerre in our blinds. It's getting harder and harder to identify, quote, old world and new world for many wines. So much so that the court of master sommeliers actually finally decided to eliminate the requirement to state if a wine was coming from either the old world or the new world in our initial conclusion, and then by default our final conclusion. Oftentimes we would call Sancerre New Zealand, but rarely call New Zealand Sancerre. But sometime in 2021, I started nailing Sancerre, like every time. So when I sat down for a full flight in preparation for the exam, I was shocked, I say, when I missed Sancerre. Later that night, I pulled my bottle of Reverdy and was like, this is Sancerre. It's not that the other bottle shouldn't have been in the flight. It was an excellent one. But the few times I've had Reverdy, it's like, well, perfect, I guess. Not in the sense of giving a score, just that it checks all the boxes. Vigna Alberti Rioja is like that for me when it comes to Rioja. Now that I've built this up, there's no pressure for it to deliver again. One last thing before we move on to the next winery. They make 4 wines, a standard white and a red, with a rosé and a second white that sees extended aging called Cuvée Ortus. I can't recall ever having the rosé. If I remember correctly, I've seen it at retail, but I failed to purchase it. Maybe it will make an appearance in a future episode. Oh, wait a minute. So I wrote this script not knowing I didn't have this rosé. And then I found it somewhere and bought it. Anyway, I'd love to try the Ortus. I can't recall ever hearing about it. The rosé I do have, or the one I originally bought, comes from the Cooperative. Reverdy is actually a founding member of the Cooperative back in 1963. Julie says her grandmother still remembers Hippolyte attending meetings every Wednesday evening. Reverdy is still a member, although they can contribute less grapes than they did in the past. The Cooperative is made up of 71 wine grower members according to their site. According to other sites, it's 90. In total, they represent 250 hectares of vines. They have a cellar or a shop you can visit. Some of the vineyards are certified organic or HVE. This is one of several brands they make from what I can tell. At the time of writing this script, their online shop was down for maintenance. I don't know if that's truly a temporary thing or permanent. To get the information for this wine, I had to cobble it together from 3 different websites. There is no website specifically for this wine, and that's really about it. All right, let's get the stats for the wines. First up, we have the 2022 Domaine Hippolyte Reverdy Sancerre Blanc. I paid $44.99 for it. It is from Sancerre, 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Vine age around 30 years. Soil, clay and Kimmeridgian limestone. Vineyard size, 11 hectares. Farming, Lutte Raisonné. Grapes are gently pressed by pneumatic press immediately following the harvest. The must settles for 36 hours. Clear juice is racked and fermented in temperature-controlled stainless steel cuves. It rests on its leaves for 2 to 3 months, stirred 3 or 4 times. Bottled in the spring around Easter. ABV, 13%. All right, bonus wine, because this is the one I bought later, is the 2023 Domaine Hippolyte Reverdy Sancerre Rosé. I paid $34 for it. It's from the Sancerre AOP, 100% Pinot Noir, vine age also around 30 years, soil, siliceous clay, gravelly limestone, vineyard size, 3 hectares, farming, Lutte Raisonné, juice obtained by direct pressing. Rosé is vinified like the whites, but at slightly cooler temperatures. There is no malolactic fermentation, and the ABV is 13%. Next, we have the rosé that was supposed to be the only rosé in the show, the non-vintage Comte de la Chevalière Sancerre Rosé. $29.95 is the regular price. I paid $19.95. It was on sale. The Sancerre AOP, of course, 100% Pinot Noir. Elaboration, direct pressing, 3 weeks low temperature fermentation in stainless steel tanks. It is light filtration, and the ABV is 12.5%. Lastly, we have the 2020 Domaine Hippolyte Reverdy Sancerre Rouge. I paid $37.99 for it. Of course, again, this Sancerre AOP, 100% Pinot Noir, just like the rosé. Vine age around 30 years. Soil, siliceous clay, gravelly limestone. Vineyard size, 3 hectares. Farming, Lutte Raisonné. Now the wine was destemmed, or the grapes were destemmed. Fermentation was 2 to 3 weeks. Pump over 2 times per day. Racked into 400-liter barrels for 1 year. Bottled unfiltered, and then ABV is 14.5%. Interestingly, even though a fraction of their production is red and rosé, the red is cheaper than the white. Just an observation I had. All right, let's get into the wines. So yeah, funny story about this. I'm sitting there doing the blind tasting, and I mean, overall the blind tasting was good. I had another set of 6 I freaking nailed afterwards, after that other one, and so I was like totally convinced that I was going to rock the exam, because tasting is my Achilles heel. And then I missed tasting by, I got a 45. Anyway, so I get home. So, you know, person's like, I call the wine whatever I called it. I mean, I don't know if I described it perfectly or not, but I called it whatever. And they pull out this Sancerre, and I looked at the guy, and it was like, man, that's really concerning, because I've been nailing Sancerre for like the last 3 years. Like every time we've had it. Like it was like 5 or 6 times in a row that Sancerre's been in a Oh, I'm poor. So you may have noticed I swapped the wines around because the stats were Reverdy, then the Chevalière, even though I had the wines in a different order on the thing. So anyway, so yeah, I'm like, it's really disappointing that I missed the Sancerre. And I get home, I had one of these from, a couple years ago, and I'm like, pop in the fridge real quick for a little while. Yeah, actually pop it in the freezer for about half an hour. Ooh, a little heavy on the pour there. And yeah, I was like, I take a whiff of it. Wow, such a difference in color. It's almost like an orange wine. And I sent a text to the guy. I was like, I'm having this. And he was like, how's it drinking? It's fantastic. So we'll see. I'm also super excited about having the Rouge. I can't remember if I've ever had Reverdy Rouge, but I've had other red Sancerres, and I've always thought they were excellent. But I'll admit, I haven't had a red Sancerre probably in 3 years, maybe longer. I don't feel like I've had them in a long, long time. So, no pressure. No pressure. No pressure, Reverdy. But I always talk about how I really love red Sancerre. All right, let's do the one everyone knows. Oh, I'm going to mention it in next week's show because I've already recorded it. But you'll notice that this has the Wine Folly logo or branding and the 50 and 75 milliliter lines, and this one doesn't. I talk about it in the New Year's Eve episode. Okay. Well, first talk color. Definitely very yellow, kind of a deeper color. So realize also, one thing to realize is that these two wines were not, first of all, you're going to have a hard time finding all of these wines. And you're not going to find these vintages. They are not the current, well, this is the current vintage. These two are not the current vintage. I kind of been sitting on them for a while. So, all right. So as far as aromatically, would I peg this as Sauvignon Blanc? No, I wouldn't. Now, with that said, since I know it's Sauvignon Blanc and I'm looking for grapefruit, I kind of get some grapefruit. I get some citrus for sure. Citrus generically. I get a little bit of white flower, and I don't get any of the bell pepper jalapeno, the pyrazine that we associate with Sauvignon Blanc so much. So anyways, I was talking to somebody the other day, and she was all like, yeah, I love Sancerre, but I had the Sancerre and it tasted like green pepper. I'm like, yes, it's supposed to. She goes, no. I'm like, that's what it's supposed to do. But over the years, one, I feel like people don't want bell pepper or jalapeno in their wine, at least not their white wine, and their red wine too. I feel like producers have been intentionally doing their canopy management to reduce the amount of pyrazine in the final product. There is a touch of pepper of some sort, but really, really, really faint, and I'm also looking for it. So let's get on the palate. So I probably would come to the conclusion that Sauvignon Blanc, it doesn't have this preponderance of citrus grapefruit, but it's there. There's a citric quality to it. I almost would say it's citric acid, but there's a citrus quality to it. First of all, is it delicious? Yes, it's delicious, okay? But there's a citric quality to it that's kind of a lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit thing. Kind of a mixture of everything. Maybe leans toward the grapefruit. I get some peach, some apricot, but again, really high acid for what I'm getting. I don't really get any tropical fruit notes, which I feel like I normally get. There's a grassiness to it, which Sauvignon Blanc can be grassy. That's kind of a pyrazine thing. I get like a bit of grassiness, like lemongrass, which I don't necessarily associate with Sancerre. But, and I'll admit that a lot of Sauvignon Blancs, I don't get that. So instead of really green bell pepper or jalapeno, I get like a lemongrass type of thing. And I get that on the nose too. It's clean. There was no like overt oak aging as far as like new oak. Like, this is neutral. Was it neutral oak, right? Yeah, neutral. 400 liters. No, is that this anyway? We're not talking like new French barrique, where you're going to get all that stuff. It's a delicious wine, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of disappointed. I think it's because last year when I had it, it checked every box. And I will also say that the one I had last year, last year in 2023, would have been as, well, maybe not as old as this one. This one is maybe like 6 to 9 months older than the one I would have had, relatively speaking. I don't know. It tastes really good, but now I kind of feel like maybe it's so wines go through these phases where they are not as expressive as they normally would be. This is 22. So, it's only 2 years old. It's fine. It's not like it's going to be, on the way downward at all. I don't know. And these are kind of room temperature. Like, I pulled everything out of the fridge, including the champagnes for next week's episode, or the sparkling wines for next week's episode. But I put these all off to the side. So however long it took to record all that. So they've warmed up decent amount. It's good. I like it. Maybe this isn't the best vintage for it. Okay. Let's do the Reverdy Rosé, making sure that everything lines up. So a really, really good pink salmon color. Beautiful looking color on this. Let's get a little sniffy sniff here, as the Gary Vaynerchuk the Thunder Show people would say. More aromatics here. More typical rosé aromatics. So raspberry, watermelon, strawberry, little cherry, floral, like red flowers, white flowers, kind of wet rock. Like already the nose is just more complex than the white. And who knows, maybe at a later date, this is going to be fantastic. I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of cocoa involved. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it tastes like most rosés of this quality level. But I get some earthiness out of it. I get the strawberry. I get the watermelon. I get the cherry. I get raspberry out of it. These are in that ripe but dry nature. I get some red flower like rose petal, some white flowers too. I also get some earth, some fresh tilled earth to it. Not quite forest floor. It's bright. It goes down smooth. Acidity is really nice, pretty elevated, delicious, easy to drink, balanced. That is really, really, I think, key for this, balance. Now let's get to the other rosé. So this is more orange, almost like brownish, almost like oxidized. And this is, well, first of all, that cork is a little bit high, so it's maybe matterized. What was the vintage on this? Oh, we didn't have a vintage, did it? Did I put a vintage on the text sheet? On the stats? No, non-vintage. That's right, because I couldn't find one. All right. Well, let's see. That might be why it looks a little oxidized, because it might be. It almost looks like things like, dessert wines that are intentionally aged. So let's smell it. It kind of smells funky, and it kind of smells a little aged. There's a dried fruit aspect, but it's just generic. I don't get like, you know, watermelon and raspberry and strawberry. I just kind of get, it's fruity. I get a little bit of orange pith. It also looks really viscous compared these. It could be just like I'm used to wines of this color being more viscous, but it really looks like it hangs on to the glass more. I get a little kind of sulfurous smell out of it. Not quite burnt popcorn, but yeah. But there's not a whole lot coming out of the glass. Let's go and taste it. It's actually really good. But it tastes like, it honestly tastes like it's a 3 or 4 year old wine. Maybe that's why it was on sale. It's non-vintage. It has a touch of oxidation to it, but not in a bad way. It's earthy, almost caramelized, almost madderized. It could be, you know, this cork is popping out a little bit, and it's not from the Corvin. Corvins will sometimes do it. No, that popped out, popped up a little bit. I'm not saying it's heat damage, but I like it. It has this kind of unusual flavor and complexity to it, but I don't think this is representative of Rosé Sancerre or Sancerre Rosé. Let's put it this way. For Christmas, I'm not opening this bottle. This will be a bottle just for me to try. Let's get to the rosé. I mean, let's get to the red. So far, this rosé has been the star of the show. All right, let's check it out. Color-wise, kind of typical rouge. Remember, I've had this wine for a little while. Not a little. I've had for an extra year. There's a little bit of browning on the edge. It's, you know, a red ruby color, but a little bit of browning on the edge. And this is a 2020. Yeah, 2020. So 4 years old. Not incredible age. Okay. All right. Feel like I walked into a winery. I get red fruit, cranberry, some cherry, raspberry a little bit. I feel like I get a little bit of spice component. I feel like I get a little bit of vanilla. I mean, I don't remember it saying that they did any type of new oak. 400-liter barrels for 1 year. But I feel like I get a little bit of vanilla on it. Potpourri, fresh tilled earth. The cherry is not dominant, which is what I kind of expect from Pinot Noir, but it doesn't have to be. It's kind of subtle. I'll put it that way. It's Pinot Noir, that's for sure. I like it. It's got that in-between thing going on. It's not burgundy. It's not burgundy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Oregon / cooler climate California. They say it's destemmed, but I feel like I taste the stems. There's this like bitterness that's not from tannin. Tannin is very light, you know, medium minus on the tannin. It's elegant and smooth. It's fine grained. The fruit, the red fruit is dried, almost desiccated. It's forest floor. It's earthy. It's a lot of earth on this. There's like a bitterness to it, like almost like a bitter root, almost like, you know, an Amaro quality going on here, almost alpine. Even though they're not near any mountains really of any significance. Yeah, it's almost like a mint cherry, like almost like a cherry mint julep. It's pretty cool. Not what I remember Red Sancerre being like, but I like it a lot. I like it a lot. My favorite of the group, honestly. Cool. All right, so Reverdy, absolutely fantastic winemaking going on here. We're going to go back and pour myself a little more of the white just because, you know, what I learned in Burgundy from tasting is many times, oftentimes, you taste red wines first and then you taste the whites. And what happens is, and we were talking, you tasting Pinot Noir, so it's not like you're tasting a heavy bruiser or anything like that. It makes the whites more expressive. So since I just had some Pinot Noir, there's a bit of sulfurousness to it. So I feel like there's a little bit of reduction going on here, but it'll blow off. I mean, it tastes really good. No doubt about it. It tastes really good. And I would definitely put it into the Sauvignon Blanc camp if I was trying to figure out what it was. Because it's more about what it's not what it is. But yeah, it doesn't have that overwhelming pyrazinic quality, which is totally fine. I get it. And it doesn't have a lot of, it's citrusy, just not a lot of grapefruit. There's a lot of people who like Sauvignon Blanc, or they tell you they like Sauvignon Blanc, but they don't like pyrazine and they don't like grapefruit. They like everything else about Sauvignon Blanc. And I think that's what this delivers on. Yeah. It's good. I like it. For me, Pinot Noir is probably the best of the wines, but this one was the most expressive for me. Yeah. This is just like crushable, and I can see just totally just sitting back, relaxing on a patio somewhere, 65 degrees, 70 degrees, and just sipping on this all day long. Good stuff. All right. So that's going to do it for today's show. If you enjoyed what I'm doing here, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and then tell your friends. And we'll see you next time, maybe with some killer Sancerre rosé.